Welcome to Alternative Living Chat, the podcast where we explore lives of people who've chosen to do things a little differently. From narrowboats to nomadic vans, off-grid cabins to eco-communities, we dive into what motivates people to live alternatively, what their days really look like, and the highs and lows of choosing the road less travelled. I'm Maxine, and I live aboard our narrowboat Never Too Late, so I know a thing or two about life outside the box. Today I'm chatting with Patrick, who he also lives on a narrowboat and has had an amazing life and a very interesting conversation that's going to prevail. So please don't forget to subscribe and like and share it as well. And if you fancy joining me, drop me a message. Thank you. And welcome to Alternative Living Chat. And if you would like to introduce yourself, Patrick, please.
My name is Patrick. I live on a 70-foot yellow narrowboat called Little Miss Sunshine. She did start out life as water pikey when we bought her from down in Gloucester, but we decided to kind of change the name. It was a little on point. So it was yellow, and one of my daughter's middle names is Sunshine. So we changed the name to Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, how lovely. And how long have you been living on board?
On this boat, I've been on for about 11 years, and then I was very lucky. I saw an advert. I was living in St. Albans, and I saw an advert in Rightmove for a boat, which was a 72-foot boat called King Louis. And luckily, there were a couple of people who wanted to go on board, and luckily I got there, and that was my introduction to boat life, and I absolutely loved it from the beginning. It was, I think, the main thing for me wasn't in the beginning was the fact that I met so many people. And when I lived in St. Albans, I knew my next door neighbors, but I didn't know anyone in the streets.
Yeah.
And being on the boat, suddenly there was just a whole bunch of people that you get, that are suddenly in your sphere that are cool or interesting. And I'm sure you've had this. You suddenly realize it's a lot easier just to remember people's boat names than all the boats. So,
Yeah, definitely.
So that was the start of my boating career.
Brilliant. So how long have you been living on the boat for, or boats for now?
Oh, I guess all told 15 years or so.
Yeah. Crikey, that's and no regrets?
Look, we've sunk the boat a couple of times, so it's not been without regrets. But would I move back into a house? Yes, if I won the lottery. But until then, no.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to stay on the boat.
So what inspired you to, or motivated you to get to move on to the boat initially?
I don't know. I think there was always narrowboats were always sort of in the periphery for some reason. And as I said, when I saw the advert, it was like I was paying nigh on close to £1,500 to rent a 3-bedroom cottage in St. Albans, 2-bedroom cottage in St. Albans, really. And the rent on the boat was £750 a month.
Wow.
So, yes. So I was a lot better off.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was that my ex-partner and I had split up, and my daughter was around about 7 or 8 at the time. And at the end of my salary and paying for the house and, the maintenance for Maya, and then also my travel costs to go and see her every 2 weeks, I had, around about £10 or £15 to my name at the end of every week.
Yeah.
For social activities, which even in those days wasn't much more than 2 beers.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer, really, wasn't it?
No, absolutely. And also genuinely close to water. My accent will tell you I'm not from around here originally. But I grew up on the coast in a town called Port Elizabeth in South Africa. And I've been around water all my life. And so to be around water is fabulous. Going back to, do I have any regrets? No, I'm in the country. I don't like people much. I mean, I don't like crowds.
Yeah.
And I like to see her horizon. And I have plenty out with the boat life, with living out in the country.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely perfect. And I can completely understand. I think living out, and especially near water, it just makes you feel calmer. it's a peaceful way of life. I find.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, no, it
Do you miss anything?
is
Do you miss?
absolutely.
Sorry.
There is the water has that effect. I mean, it is the one. No, no, no. You go. Do I miss anything from South Africa?
Yeah.
My mom, yeah, you know, bits of things like the sea and sometimes the country. But I've lived in the UK for over 30 years now, and so this is functionally, functionally my home. It's my home in my head, and it's my home in my heart. Even though you feel sometimes like you're a stranger at times, especially when England is playing against South Africa in the rugby. But but yes, no, I so do I miss? No, not really. I could go to the sea in Spain or Portugal or somewhere else and enjoy that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, I'll go back to see my mom. I go back to see my mother quite regularly, but no,
No.
my home is here. I go back to South Africa and it's fabulous for a week, and then I'm thinking, "Wow, I want to get back to the boat."
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange. I've never ever missed when we used to go on holiday when we had the house. I never missed the house. When you're on holiday, you don't think, "Oh, I can't wait to get back." In fact, if anything, it was like, "I'm not bothered about going back." But when we go away and leave the boat, I can't wait to come back to the boat. Even though I've enjoyed where I have been, but I just can't. And we've just been away up just into Yorkshire for a week, and I couldn't wait to get back to the boat. It's just like it snuggles you round, and it's just a happy, wholesome way of living.
Yeah, well, yes, I guess you're absolutely right. It isn't just a home. There's a whole bunch of life surrounding that as well. And I
Mm.
think being living on a narrow boat. I can't speak for vans, but I would imagine, that they must have similar things. It's that there's always things to do to occupy yourself in order to keep the boats running. Whereas you can live in a house and you don't necessarily need to think about anything until it breaks down.
Yeah,
Whereas in a boat, you're thinking, I've used some energy. Do I need to charge my batteries? Have I got water? How are the toilets doing? Is the fire on? Have I got et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? There's so many things that form part of that, the running of the boats and the engine, et cetera, et cetera. And you know the peace, I guess, and the peace and the quiet and however you're living, whether you're in the town or the countryside, all of those things, and whatever community you find within that, all of those things kind of creates really nice, fuzzy, better than home word. I don't
yeah,
know if there's a word for it, but you know what I mean. It's
yeah,
it's bigger than just I'm going home.
yes, yeah. No, I totally agree with you. So, what? Obviously, you come through to you about your music. So, what have you? Where do you do it? How do you do it? What started all your music? Because I'm intrigued.
So my there's I've known so Timothy's I would call Timothy Bala. We both went to the kind of I went to a South African version and Timothy went to a UK version of the kind of posh sort of boys' school
Mhm.
where they call you by your surname. And I've called Timothy by his surname only because I know it irritates him. And so we kind of refer to themselves alternative Mr. Bala and Mr. Cole. So Tim, we got to know each other working for one of the top 5 accountancy practices in the world, I guess. And in London, I thought I was the only person on a boat. He thought he was the only person on the boat. We happened to work for exactly the same department and got on incredibly well. And so last year, around about this time, we had a big Christmas towpath thing planned where Tim carries around an Argo stove on the back of his boat.
Oh,
And we can take that off and put it up onto the towpath. And so we took that off, put it on towpath. And there must have been about 10 or 12 boats of people. And so we kind of had a Christmas celebration.
wow.
And that was the plan. And around about this time, he'd written some words and he wanted me to put it into a song. So I'm a musician. I was working on my own album at the time. I was kind of in the middle of being stuck. And he gave me these words and I went, okay, what do you want me to do? And he went, well, I want a folky shanty type thing. So it was great for me because as a musician, because I was given words, I just had to come up with a catchy chorus and the rest of the music. And so I wrote a catchy chorus. We put the words in, and that song is Sailing on the Canal. And then Tim, who's, because he's an outrageous raconteur, managed to convince everybody along the towpath, gave them the printed out words, and practiced everybody singing this. So that on the, I think it was 27th and 28th of December, we would all sing it together
Oh, brilliant.
at the evening when he was Santa Claus and running around and gifts and stuff. So community, old school boating kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he just said, "I've got more words if you'd like." So Tim writes, started writing some poetry, a little bit around the canals and stuff, and some lyrics, and then I just mucked around with these words and added chorus lyrics, because that's where my skill set is kind of writing catchy choruses, I guess. And so we started writing songs and started putting the music together, and we ended up with 9 songs on this album that we're promoting, and 1 poem, which is called Absent Friends.
Yeah.
We had a very good friend of mine, also a boater, died this year, and so we kind of dedicated it to Mac. I mean, he was a horrible fellow. I mean, I loved him. I loved Mac incredibly, but he was a horrible man. And so we worked and put that, and we decided to put Absent Friends, the poem, on that for Mac. And we ended up with 9 songs, where we kind of got halfway through writing the album and then realized that some of the things we wanted to do, we wanted to bring in a little bit of, we realized, sorry, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but we realized that there wasn't anybody else doing music about boaters, about the boating life, that's up to date, that there isn't. Folk music is always kind of meant to be about the life, about the now, we tend to listen to it where it's old school, but folk music should be current and relevant. And so we did kind of construct it. It was a little bit more constructed than ad hoc, where we kind of wanted to start to criticize the Canal and Riverside Trust a little bit, of which, there's much to criticize, with the very clear statement on my half that they have a huge organization and responsibility that doesn't just entail the canals. They have other things that they need to look after. But I interact with the organization through the canals, and so where we can see locks not being repaired and things not being done, and so we kind of went in a little bit and thought, yes, we could write about that and put some more meaning behind some of the songs. So yes, and so we finished it, and we've already started working on the next one.
Oh, fab.
Because we found out there was a little bit more to say, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So where do you do all your recording? Do you have a studio, or do you do it on the boat, or how does it work?
So my studio consists of the laptop that I'm talking to you on, an interface which allows me to plug my guitars in. I have about 6 or 7 guitars on the boat, and then none of them are expensive. None of them have any value whatsoever. I just like the way some of them sound.
Yeah.
And a keyboard for which I add kind of different sounds through using MIDI and some software. So really, my studio is a mic stand, a microphone, a laptop, and my boat, and
Brilliant.
that's it. There's nothing soundproofing. There's nothing professional about it. It really is just, let's see what I can do. And
yeah, that's fantastic. And so, have you done a CD, or is it just online at the moment?
Yeah, so we have some CDs, but it's kind of strange, isn't it? We didn't kind of. The plan was, to be honest, Maxine, the plan was that we were just going to do this as a wheeze. Like we used to call these wheezes. It was just meant to be a short-term thing, and it was going to be a show. So it was going to alternate between me doing the songs on my guitar and Timothy doing some poetry. And he has a fabulous mellifluous speaking voice, which does sort of drag you in to what he's talking about. And benefit of a good education, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the thing is kind of grew. So we did some CDs. We put the album onto Spotify and iTunes, and you can access it via YouTube, and you can also kind of get it online at the grandest union
That's brilliant.
dot co dot UK, where you can get the songs, and I think you can certainly listen to them. You can download them and pay for them. We've put it as paid, but I mean, you can listen to them for free online. So yes, it's kind of like, yes, we will do CDs. We've done a couple of them. So we just started to promote the album, really, with some trepidation, obviously, because you don't know how people are going to take the music, or whether they're going to like it or not.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't listened to them all yet, but I will be doing. I mean, I like that type of music. I love folk music, and so yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed what I've heard so far, which is brilliant. And I'm hoping that obviously the listeners to this will download or contact you to get CDs and go onto the different music genres they can get to and listen to them, because they are very, very good. Are you going to do gigs and things like that as well with it, or is it just going to be mainly on your online?
I see. That's kind of interesting. That would be the second level wheeze, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you know, I'm laughing only because I have this kind of internal monologue, which is, we're talking about music. I don't really want to sound like I'm pontificating, but when I studied music at school, and I did a year of university of music, but I did mostly brass music.
Mm-hmm.
So I played trumpet, blah 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 blah. And so on the song, for example, "Sailing on the Canal," right at the end, there's
Yeah.
some brass that comes in, and some of the other songs I've got a little trumpet or something over there. And I would like to keep that, but it's kind of big, heavy for a band. I'd like to get that. And then there's also the wanting to have boaters, so people that are on boats being part of the band, because I think there's a value to that, of knowing your audience and being able to step off stage and go, I can talk to these people because they're my people,
Yeah.
and I don't have to not interact. Because I think there's something very valuable in bands being, not Coldplay, obviously, but when you're a small band and you're starting out, there's a value in actually connecting and talking, because you might find somebody say, hey, you know what would be a good song
Yeah.
is that, and then you can go, oh, okay, yes, that might be a good song. So yes, and the next wheeze is, so I guess, the process at the moment is to finish up the first draft of the next album, and then and promote at the same time, and then possibly in the new year start looking for a band and see, just see if there are gigs out there. Yeah. So that's the plan.
That sounds fab. It really does. And it fits in with your lifestyle, which is the main thing, because finding something to work, the way that we live and everything is absolutely fantastic.
It does. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and we can move, which is also cool. That's also fabulous. The ability to be able to move your house is fabulous. I think yeah, it's setting up, just taking, it's kind of, in a weird way, it's kind of taking steps, right? So we've
Yeah.
done the album, it's there. We went, okay, cool. Then we've had some feedback, and people have liked it, and somebody went on and bought the album online, and you're just going, okay. And we've had, Pete and Christine, they're on a boat further down, and they were like, they're in their late 70s, and they went, we love the music, it's fabulous. And then we had a young boater who Tim knows, who's in her 20s, and I love the music. I've downloaded the album of Apple, and it's not a age thing, it's more a boater kind
Yeah.
of thing. So did I finish my train of thought? Not sure. Yeah, so I guess we got to there, and it feels like it could be successful. And success, not, I'm not, as I said, we're not considering international fame and fortune. It's more about just being successful in a community and being able to reflect that community well and have a good time.
Yeah.
And drink some beer. but it's, that next stage is going to take a little bit more organization and more et cetera, et cetera,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
huge amount of fun.
It sounds like you've got it planned ish, and it'll evolve as it does, won't it? And that's the main thing.
Yes, sir, and an emphasis on the word ish there.
Yes, yeah. Living the way we do, there's never nothing ever goes exactly how you think it's going to. There's always something that will just rock the boat, as we say, slightly.
Yeah, I'm just literally talking about that. I just literally finished something called it's about breaking down, about boats breaking down because and your engine problems on a boat because we
Yeah,
finished a song on that. I just finished in the first draft on that.
that's it.
And also one about lengthsmen. I don't know if you've, how long you've been on boats for, but we've got a song about lengthsmen, about bringing them back because gas, not to damp, not, in the old days, the lengthsmen knew everything. They could repair things. They
They
understood,
could.
that they, 20, 30 years on the job, they could do things quickly.
Yeah,
And you and certainly I and most continuous cruisers or people who are out often will have an instance where they've come across some of the contractors working for the Canal and Riverside Trust who take 5 days to fix something that could be done in the morning,
yeah,
who walk up and down pretending to cut grass, and you go, well, I can't see where it's been cut. And so we kind of wanted to say, bring these guys back. And the song reflects that, to bring back the Lensman. But behind that, there should be the Canal and Riverside Trust should bring these guys back, set up an apprentice scheme. The
yeah,
government will pay you to train people to do the job better.
yeah,
And so, what we are also going to try and do is add that thing. There's also things like we have a water problem at the moment. Fabulous.
hmm,
The problem is it's not just the Canal and Riverside Trust's responsibility to manage water. It's
yeah,
also our responsibility to manage water, which means waiting half an hour and if nobody arrives, then go down. It's closing lock gates. It's doing what you can do
yeah,
for everyone. And we kind of feel like we've lost that responsibility that, it's that kind of, I don't know, when you leave junior school, your teachers always say, yes, you're going to high school. That's high school now. They won't spoon feed you anymore. But it's the feeling like we've suddenly gone into being kindergarten children and saying the teacher needs to do everything for us when
yeah.
actually we have some agency.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think it's a lot of people are selfish, and we're just thinking ourselves, and we don't think about the wider picture of just small things can make a huge difference. And I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah. And I agree with you. Look, we're never going to, I'm not for the moment suggesting anybody take action on this. And I'm not, I'll tell you a story. I was, a chap just went through the locks, didn't close any gates, just buggered off. And it was a short pound. And I just thought, no, this is not right. That's
yeah.
he can work the locks. So I stormed down and I gave him several pieces of my mind, none of which I'm going to ever get back. And the poor lad, I mean, I'm 6 foot tall, I'm bald headed, I'm rather large. I do pose I do, pose an imposing sort of figure when I'm grumpy. So, so in this situation, everything turned out all right, not for the fella, but for me. And I walked back thinking I'm an absolute idiot for doing that because I was so embarrassed. So I'm not saying people should do that, but I think if we get enough people to take responsibility personally, like you would, I would, there are people that do this who are responsible boaters
Yeah,
who will say, actually, be fair, I need to not do that. Let me wait. I'm not in a hurry. And then you will always get, the people who are, you sort of kind of skate like that and who don't do that and don't care. And there's no way of telling them what to do because they won't be told. But then that's our society that we live in at the moment. And when it's any society, going back through time, there's always been dickheads.
yeah, yeah,
But we need to get the 80% of people that are kind of aren't to kind of say, actually, let's be responsible, guys.
yeah.
Let's look after what we have. Otherwise, because if it goes, it's our responsibility at the same time.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you with that. So, since you've been living on your the way you heart on the boat and everything, have your priorities changed? Do you think with life in general, things?
No, I don't know. It's such a broad priorities are such a broad kind of concept. I think, I think in a way, priorities for me would be there's a certain removal from the way we've set this up. So my partner and I have set it up where we've had a swings and roundabouts in our relationship where I've worked and she hasn't worked, and then or I've had a more better paying job than her. So we have, and at the moment, her job's really her career's taking off. It's very successful, and during COVID, we have two dogs, two cats, and we've been on the boats since COVID started, and we didn't kill each other,
Yeah.
which is a minor miracle. But the animals have got used to having somebody at home all the time, and we have a 12-year-old deaf Chihuahua cross Jack Russell who's still alive based on anger and spite. But she gets incredibly distressed if there isn't anybody, and she howls. And of course, she can't hear herself howling,
No.
but everybody else can. So we've kind of we went up to the Chesterfield Canal just after COVID, and we came down because her job is in London for a multinational, and they offered to increase her salary. So we've got that. So my priorities kind of changed, less having to go to work and come back to the boat and then do chores,
Yeah.
and more kind of maintenance and existing in a space where I could do quite a lot of music, especially when my partner goes into London and stays down there for 3 days. And so I guess my priorities have kind of internalized more, that I spend a bit more time thinking about myself in a non-selfish way as opposed to everybody else. I guess my priorities have become more internally focused
Yeah.
than having to provide and work and make sure that all that's done. And we have a really good partnership where she goes off and does that, and I'm comfortable doing the let's stay at home and look after everybody and make sure everything works, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And none of us and I don't resent her in any way, shape, or form, because I really don't like office work, and she doesn't resent me in any way, shape, or form because she couldn't deal with the loneliness.
Yeah. That's
So it's perfect. It
perfect.
works. So no, my priorities in that way, not so much change as rather as kind of internalized rather than externalized priorities.
Yeah. And what advice would you give someone who's thinking of doing, living the way that you do?
Ah, man, the thing is, it's hard being a boater, a continuous cruiser. I can't speak for marinas, never lived in one, but I can say as a continuous cruiser, it's a hard life. Winter, talking about winter because we are in winter now.
Yeah.
It's harder than living in a town. You're not 10 yards away from your front door with your washing or with your shopping or etc., etc. And pavements pavements are a blessing over towpaths which are muddy, and sometimes there's a lot of people walking on them, and it's cold. So my advice is to understand that it's such a fabulous and wonderful, and at the end of it, incredibly privileged life to live. You know, we're less than 0.0% of the British population,
Mm.
and we get to have this life, and it isn't without without sacrifice. It isn't without some hardship. So my advice is to stay. If you're going to buy a boat, buy it just before winter,
Yeah.
so that you understand that if you can get through the hardest time, then then summer is an absolute blessing, and you'll enjoy it and you'll live on it. Advice is to say that you'll have to be more present in the moment because of power, water, all those things we spoke about. And I would also say, don't stay in your boats. Now, winter, we all kind of hibernate a little in winter, but my advice about in boaters, talk to other people. And also, we should all do this as boaters. There are a lot of people on the canals that are used to be served by chaplains. Not knocking the chaplains at all. They do a wonderful thing. But in
Yeah.
the old days, the lads used to walk up and down, especially in winter, and knock on boats. How are you doing? And there are people that don't sometimes have weeks without speaking to other people on boats.
Yeah.
And so, I would also the piece of advice is to get out, know people, and they'll help you. If your engine breaks down, you know somebody who can help you. They'll all give you some very bad advice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's extremely good advice. And yeah, I especially talking to people and, as you say, knocking on people's, just making sure that person, the boat behind you is okay or in front of you, and especially if they're by themselves, because in the winter it can be very, very lonely place. And especially if you don't get
Yes.
off the boat, yeah, you have to. I mean, I'm lucky. I run and I walk, and I've got my husband as well. That we live on the boat, and we've got the dog, so we always have to get out anyway. But we've come across a few people we've been on the boat for 3.5 years now, just over, that we've helped out because they've been lonely or just need that extra bit of support. And I think the community that we've decided to live in, that's what should be happening. It's I think more and more people are doing that, and it's just nice when you get to give somebody some support.
Yeah, it is. It's one of, we have. I mean, it's through luck, not happening. No, not it happenstance. We ended up with a boat with massive windows, which is great for me. I love light. We spend a bit more on heating in winter,
Yeah,
but we have so much light in, and it's people that spend their time in boats with tiny little portholes, and there's not a lot not natural light, and you know what it's like in winter, especially when the nights draw in like they have done.
yeah,
We're in our boat. And it's a small space. It's a
yeah,
comfortable, lovely. It's like a little bit like a womb, but still, it can be oppressive.
yeah.
There used to be an absolutely fabulous a water chaplain down near Rickmansworth, Watford, and he used to do that patch, and would stop in for a cup of tea. My grandfather was an Anglican minister,
All right.
and I was a choir boy, so we would have some decent chats about about theology, etc., etc. But he would stop at every boat and knock on, and then he
Yeah,
would go check on this person, check on that, take some food, have a cup of tea. You
that's
know,
lovely.
it's a
Yeah,
fabulous thing to do.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So, what's been the most memorable moment since you've been living on the boat, would you say?
So, there are lots of memorable moments, but I will tell you this: the one memorable moment was couldn't tell you where, but there was a squirrel on a boat's gunwale ahead of me.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, I have absolutely no idea. I just yelled at the squirrel. The squirrel got a shock and started fell off the boats, swimming across the canal towards my moving boats. And I'm horrified. I mean, I'm very much against killing anything. And the squirrel swam just behind my boat. I looked as my propeller caught the squirrel, threw it up over into the air, and landed it on the other side of the canal bank onto the towpath. So that is the most memorable thing
Wow.
that I can see. And the squirrel scampered off. I don't think there's much that can get damaged from the buggers. They can fall from amazing heights.
Yeah,
But it got hit by my and flew through the air and landed on the towpath on the other side. I don't know how it would get back onto the other side of the canal, but that was up to it.
that's it. You'd have to find a new home. Definitely. That's fantastic.
Yep,
Yep. And finally, if you could sum up your lifestyle in 3 words, what would they be?
it's pretty good.
Yeah. Bro. Well, I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming
Very,
on
very welcome.
the podcast, and I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. And I'll put your website into the information so people can find your music, which will be
That's very
fantastic.
kind of you.
And they can follow you, and hopefully you'll get lots of new followers for your music, because it is extremely good.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. That's good. See, it's good. That's cool.
It is. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to Patrick's story. And don't forget, you can listen to his music via the website, which is in the information about the podcast. And just remember, if you fancy joining me for a conversation, drop me a message. Thanks again for listening. Bye.